Hello, I'm Bob Pitman. I was for 29 years the director of Mill Race Center, and I'm pleased to make this recording about the humor of presidents, something I've always enjoyed. John F. Kennedy was known for his humor, and the thing that most made his humor great was he liked to poke fun of himself, kind of as a defense, really. For example, he would talk about his wealth. And he said that his father, Joseph P. Kennedy, told him when John ran for president, he said, "Dear Jack, don't buy a single more vote than necessary. I'll be damned if I'm going to pay for a landslide." He did get heckling about his wealth. At one stop, a tough-looking man asked him if he'd ever done any manual labor for wages. When Kennedy answered he had not, the man replied, "Well, let me tell you something. You ain't missed a damn thing." Kennedy also made fun of his religion. As you know, he was the first Catholic president ever elected. And Kennedy said, "I think it well we recall what happened to a great governor when he became a presidential nominee. Despite his successful record as a governor, despite his plain-spoken voice, the campaign was a debacle." The listeners to this, thinking he was talking about the first Catholic candidate, Al Smith, roared their approval when he continued, "To top it off, he lost his home state. You all know his name and his religion. Alfred M. Landon, Protestant." When a Texas couple visiting friends were told, "I know you're anti-Catholic. I guess that means you're for Nixon," they replied, "Well, we're not that anti-Catholic." Kennedy was nominated on the first ballot of the 1960 Democratic Convention, and the party quickly closed ranks. His main rival, Lyndon Johnson, sent him a message that said, "LBJ now means let's back Jack." And Harry Truman, who had also opposed him, said, "I'm from Missouri. He had to show me, and he did." Nixon was in the hospital for a knee infection during the campaign. Kennedy had promised not to mention Nixon unless he could praise him until Nixon got out of the hospital. And Kennedy later reported, "I have not mentioned him." His accent was something also that he joked about, and others did too. Speaking to farmers in Iowa, Kennedy said, "What's the matter? What is the matter with the American farmer today? What's the matter with the American farmer? He's starving." At the Al Smith Memorial Dinner, Kennedy concluded his remark about Truman's use of profanity in the campaign. He said, "I have sent him the following note. Dear Mr. President, I have noted with interest your suggestion as to where those who vote for my opponent should go. While I understand and sympathize with your deep motivation, I think it's important that our side try to refrain from raising the religious issue." He also joked about his reputation of being a war hero. When asked about it, Kennedy said, "It was totally involuntary. They sank my boat." And on naming Bobby Kennedy his Attorney General, Kennedy said, "The critics don't realize I had a very good reason for the appointment. Bobby wants to practice law, and I thought he ought to get a little experience first." After a dust-up with President Truman, the President said, "I guess Truman will apologize for calling me an SOB, and I will apologize for being one." Kennedy liked to joke about opponents. Kennedy and Barry Goldwater were philosophical opponents, but actually good friends. Goldwater, a noted photographer, took a photo of Kennedy and sent it to him for his autograph. Kennedy wrote to Barry Goldwater, he wrote, "To Barry Goldwater, who I would urge to follow a career for which he has sown so much talent, photography, from his friend John F. Kennedy." The Kennedys had a compound in Palm Beach, Florida, where most of his neighbors were strong Republicans. Returning from a holiday there, JFK said he had doubts about his popularity. "Like members of the Congress, I have been the last few days over the Easter holiday back in touch with my constituents and seeing how they felt. And frankly, I've come back to Washington. I've come back to Washington from Palm Beach, and I've decided I'm against my entire program." Well, as you know, Kennedy's race for president was the closest popular vote in history. He won by 112,000 votes out of 68 million. In fact, a shift of 37 votes in Texas and Illinois would have changed the results. And many feel that that was the reason, his best reason for choosing LBJ as his vice presidential candidate. Historians differ on Kennedy's legacy, including what it might have been had he lived. But few can dispute that he was one of our most humorous presidents.